Sometime in the mid-20th century, the White House came to be regarded as the residence of the most powerful person in the world, the President of the United States. This is a person who wields enough raw energy in the form of nuclear weapons to annihilate the world many times over. This person is also privy to secrets, military and otherwise, that very few other people have any inkling of. And this person, in the normal course of events, has tremendous influence over the policies and actions of many other countries. He or she, also in the normal course of events, receives a daily morning briefing on everything of any consequence that has happened overnight, all over the world. Information gathered by a web of intelligence services, both electronic and human, that covers the globe, and so naturally enough, there is bottomless fascination and curiosity about exactly what goes on between those walls and behind those doors. There are very few residences that have attracted so much attention, other than perhaps 10 Downing Street or the Kremlin, and it's impossible not to wonder what secrets are being kept in these various seats of government. Here we look at some of the rumoured secrets of the White House. So sit back and get comfortable, and send your Secret Service detachment out for pizza or Chinese food, so they won't know you're learning about the White House secrets, and enjoy. Considering what must go on, involving large numbers of people 24/7 in the White House, it simply can't just be a big old house. Granted, it has 132 rooms, but no one can go anywhere in the White House through corridors, stairs and hallways without being seen virtually every step of the way, at least by the Secret Service and White House police. The official position is that there are no secret methods for getting from one place to another in the White House, except for 3. One is an underground passage directly from the White House to a converted vault in the Treasury building, built during the administration of Franklin Roosevelt, after the Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941. Allegedly, after the passageway was built, Secret Service agents were assigned regular shifts, during which they practiced running up and down the passage pushing a wheelchair. This was of course because of Roosevelt's incapacitation due to polio. This passageway and Treasury vault were also what was used by Vice President Dick Cheney and other Bush administration staff in the immediate aftermath of the 9/11 attacks. Another is a bomb shelter that began its construction hidden behind high wooden walls and explained away as unspecified renovations. The third is a secret entrance to the White House, which involves passing through a closed-off alley, 2 tunnels and an entry into the White House basement. You can see this secret alley entryway from H Street. Now these are the 3 that are widely known about, but when you consider the main inspiration for the White House is usually considered to be the Leinster House in Ireland, a house built in 1745 to 1748 that is permeated with concealed doors in walls, secret passageways and staircases in the walls, and peepholes in various places. It's hard to believe that these features were not also incorporated into the White House, and although there is no official record of any such design, it's tempting to believe the White House is also full of secret doorways, passages and staircases. In 1814, only 14 years after the American capital had moved from Philadelphia to Washington, D.C., and during the administration of James Madison, the British stormed D.C. and ravaged it during the War of 1812. The reasons for this war, as you might expect, are complicated, and need not concern us here, but as a very young nation, the Doomsday plans in place for the US and the then called President's House appear to have been limited to take what you can carry and run away. And that's what James and Dolly Madison did, as well as everyone else who could manage it, as the British approached. Fortunately, for the Americans at least, a fierce thunderstorm followed by a tornado that doused the flames and halted the British advance. Matters have improved since then, since we now have nuclear weapons. Now this may sound like a joke in poor taste, but in a sense it's not. The US, Russia, the UK, France, China, India, Pakistan, Israel, and North Korea all have nuclear weapons, and this has made war, at least between any two of these nations, an extremely risky gamble. However, someone may risk that gamble, and so there needs to be contingency plans in place. Through the late 1940s and the first half of the 1950s, the US and the USSR were in direct competition on many fronts, including the development of more nuclear weapons of greater and greater power. Britain detonated its first nuclear device in 1952, followed by France in 1960. By then, it was obvious that nuclear weapons research was increasing uncontrollably, and China and Israel had already embarked on their own nuclear weapons research. So grab what you can and run was no longer a viable option. Starting during the Truman administration and continuing and accelerating throughout the Eisenhower administration, a complex and extremely detailed plan was put in place to ensure that in the event of a first strike, and even a decapitation strike, the United States would still function. This was called a Continuity of Government, or COG plan. For instance, two mountains were completely hollowed out and reinforced: Mount Weather in Berryville, Virginia for civilians, and Raven Rock in Maryland for military personnel. Miniature cities were built inside these mountains, complete with office buildings, living quarters, police and fire departments, cafeterias and reservoirs for drinking water. They were intended to be functioning miniature cities and still existed during the Reagan administration, and perhaps still do. Buford Macklin, Reagan's emergency planning coordinator for the Department of Housing and Urban Development, said, "It's mind-boggling. It's otherworldly. It's a mini-city, like a space station." Hundreds of reinforced trains and tractor-trailers, intended as emergency command centres, were also sent out on the National's railroads and highways, and are presumably still there, travelling 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There were, and doubtless still are, numerous sites that are intended to house COG teams, each headed by the most senior government official still alive and functional. Beyond that, various private sector leaders in science, technology, and business were recruited to be on standby alert if the need arose because government leaders had been killed. Billions of dollars were siphoned from the national budget in order to fund all this, under innocuous code names like the National Program Office. This was codenamed Treetop, and it outlined the various personnel, procedures, and war plans that would be implemented and would constitute the Presidential Successor Support Plan, or PS3, in the event of a decapitation strike. To streamline governmental decisions and actions, the Congress would not be reconstituted. It was also assumed that whoever assumed the presidency in this chaotic situation would be woefully unprepared, and so an elaborate plan for providing a support team with various alternative members was also created. Even what documents and artworks would be saved was considered. For instance, the Declaration of Independence would be saved, but the Constitution would not. In the 1960s, a policy particularly associated with Richard Nixon was adopted, which was mutually assured destruction, or MAD. In a speech in 1967, then Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara argued that maintaining a highly reliable ability to inflict unacceptable damage on an adversary is most likely to maintain a tense but stable status quo. The foundational assumption, which is presumably correct, is that in the event of a nuclear war, neither of the combatants will survive. This is now more true than ever, with greater precision in the delivery of nuclear weapons and a much wider range of energy yields. What the West can say, which is certainly something, is that we never got into a hot war with the USSR. Present-day Russia can say the same thing. Since this is all old news, we have no idea of what contingency plans are in place at this moment, because they are highly secret. But we can be certain that they are vast and complicated, and are targeted towards the essentials of continued governance of the United States, and not saving the population, as the latter would be impossible. It's probably not humanly possible to discuss American presidents or the White House without wondering who in Washington knows about UFOs and extraterrestrials. There have been numerous petitions demanding disclosure, including the rather loaded demand that the government admits that there are in fact extraterrestrials on Earth, and that it has some of them. One thing we do know about the White House and UFOs is that something extremely strange occurred over Washington DC on 2 consecutive weekends in July of 1952. These events are well known and have been extensively discussed, but no satisfactory explanation has ever emerged. The events of the weekend of July 19th to 20th and 26th to 27th followed a roughly similar pattern, with multiple objects appearing and disappearing on air traffic control and military radar screens, sometimes accompanied by visual sightings. They were generally described as luminous balls or spheres, although in some eyewitness accounts, including one by an Army artillery officer, a large, cigar-shaped object with multiple lights was seen. On both weekends, F-94 fighter jets were dispatched, but either couldn't see the objects that appeared on radar, or could see them but couldn't match their speed. The objects appeared to hover, accelerate to extremely high speed, and abruptly change direction. They on some occasions simply vanished. The official explanation seemed to be that these radar blips were due to temperature inversions. However, this explanation is generally regarded as unattainable because the radar hits appear to be of solid objects and not meteorological phenomena, and temperature inversions occur every day over Washington in the summer, and these were very different. The National Weather Bureau, a forerunner of the National Weather Service, also disputed the claim that multiple discrete radar hits could be temperature inversions. To put an end to the flood of UFO reports that began pouring in, a rather large press conference was held by the Air Force and USAF intelligence, in which the rather vague claim was made that these objects were not solid objects, and could be explained by various types of misidentifications of known objects, and of course, temperature inversions. What they were has never been satisfactorily explained, but now, over 65 years later, we know beyond any reasonable doubt that there are some strange things in the skies. No one admits to knowing what they are. It does appear, however, that the branch of the American military are concerned enough to pay attention. A word about Majestic 12 is also worth a mention here, since it has been a mainstay of UFO conspiracies since the 1980s. Supposedly formed by President Harry Truman as Operation Majestic 12, its purpose has been alleged to be to cover up the Roswell incident by using a disinformation campaign. Numerous documents have been pre-offered to support this, and some people have determined that these documents are falsified, while others have claimed that they are legitimate. There is no realistic way to definitively assess these claims and counterclaims, but the weight of opinion appears to be that it's all a hoax. The claim that some presidents have actually seen and met with extraterrestrial beings dates to the Eisenhower administration. The story about Eisenhower is a bit offbeat. On the evening of February 20th, 1954, while on vacation in Palm Springs, California, Eisenhower allegedly disappeared from public view and didn't resurface until the next morning. The official explanation is that a tooth crown loosened or fell out during dinner, and he had to see a dentist. This sounds routine, although over the years it's been claimed that Eisenhower's medical records do not include such dental work on that date, and the dentist never received a written thank you from Eisenhower's staff, and the dentist's wife could not recall being told by her husband of a visit from the president. This inevitably spawned speculation about his whereabouts that evening, including an AP bulletin that he had died of a heart attack. This report was retracted mere minutes later, and no one knows what inspired it in the first place other than wild rumours. Another theory that persists to this day in some quarters is that Eisenhower was whisked away in the dark of night to Edwards Air Force Base to meet two extraterrestrials. This story seems to have originated with Michael Sala, then a professor of government at American University, who thought the dentist story was too far-fetched. according to Sala, the president actually met with two tall, blonde, blue-eyed aliens called Nordics, who spoke to Eisenhower telepathically, offering advanced technology and spiritual wisdom to humanity, in return of the renunciation of nuclear weapons. Eisenhower declined. Later that same year, according to Sala, Eisenhower met at Holloman Air Force Base in New Mexico with another type of extraterrestrial, now called Greys, and he agreed to let the Greys take away animals and humans for experimentation, just as long as they returned the humans. Eisenhower's own great-granddaughter, Laura, has claimed that these stories are true, and that extraterrestrials have led the US into a variety of highly secret and dangerous space projects. In January 13, 2014, Forbes ran an article about a claim made by FARS, the Iranian news agency, that the US is ruled by a race of tall white aliens. Apparently this news was leaked by Edward Snowden, who in turn got it from the Russian spy agency FSB. The FSB claimed that an alien/extraterrestrial intelligence agenda has been driving US domestic and foreign policy since at least 1945. According to the documents leaked by Snowden, the tall whites assisted in the rise to power of the Nazi Party in Germany and helped them build a fleet of advanced submarines, and then met with Eisenhower in 1954 to cement the ruling alien regime. As of 2014, then President Obama, who was leading the tall white alien faction, was in a pitched battle with unarmed resistance groups who were opposed to eventual world domination by extraterrestrials. Unfortunately, there was no follow-up to the story, and so we do not know who won. Ronald Reagan, of course, saw a UFO in 1974 during his tenure as governor of California. He was aboard a Cessna, a small commuter plane with 3 other people. The pilot, Bill Painter, said later that it was a fairly steady light only a few hundred yards away, elongated as it began to accelerate, and then took off at a very high rate of speed until it disappeared. Reagan apparently thought frequently about extraterrestrials and the possibility of an invasion. According to Mikhail Kobyshev, in 1985, during a summit at Lake Geneva, Switzerland, Reagan asked him during a private talk if the Soviets would help the US in the event of an alien invasion. Kobyshev assured him that they would indeed help. And of course, during his speech to the UN in 1987, Reagan talked about how the world might need a threat from outside to bring everyone together.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet I ask you, is not an alien force already among us? What could be more alien to the universal aspirations of our peoples than war and the threat of war?
Some people have inferred that these events meant that Reagan knew more than he was letting on about extraterrestrials. Richard Nixon also had dealings of some sort with extraterrestrials, according to various sources. One such source was Earl Robert Butch Merritt, described variously as a low-level police informant, a political dirty trickster, or some type of obscure government operative. He appears to have been part of Nixon's plans to bring down political opponents and anti-war activists. According to Merritt, near the end of his presidency, Nixon took him into his confidence about a very big topic, extraterrestrials. More than that, Nixon confided to Merritt that the US government had an extraterrestrial in custody, or under its protection, at Area 51, along with alien technology. This material was from Planet X. Merritt claimed that Nixon said he had placed a letter along with evidence of alien visitations in a time capsule hidden somewhere in the White House. In addition, Nixon gave Merritt a copy of the letter and 2 cassette tapes to carry to then Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, strapping them to Merritt's stomach. He then told Merritt to either give the package to Kissinger personally or just drop it in a mailbox. Merritt now claims that he knows where this letter is hidden in the White House, but will only reveal its location if the government agrees to allow it to be read out loud to the public. Beverly Gleason, the widow of the comedian and actor Jackie Gleason, also claimed that Nixon had revealed evidence of extraterrestrials to Jackie during a visit to Florida. The White House is one of the most important buildings on the planet, and by the very nature of the roles performed by the people who inhabit it, it's certainly a hotbed of secrecy. Some of those secrets are probably petty, and some are presumably earth-shattering, at least potentially. It's easy to believe that there are hidden doors, passageways, and staircases, rather like, if not identical to, those in Leinster House. But it's possible that there really aren't any of those things, and skullduggery goes on in empty rooms, corners, and of course numerous secure locations, either in the White House, the Capitol, or at other, more far-flung locations. Amongst these secret meetings are certainly Doomsday plans, which change as technology and other capabilities develop. It may well be that the US, Russia, and China all have so-called Doomsday switches. These are essentially timed switches set to launch all-out automated nuclear counterattacks in the event that one of these countries is annihilated in a nuclear exchange with any of the others. We cannot know this for certain because such plans, if they exist, as they are the worst of the worst plans, we can only presume that some provisions have been made for virtually every eventuality. One can only presume, also, that countries, and certainly the aforementioned nuclear-capable ones, have some sort of plans in place in the event of meeting with extraterrestrials. The recently revealed existence of protocols for Navy fighter pilots in the event of encountering UFOs or UAVs is to give them some practical guidance. These protocols do not mean that the Navy or any other branch of the military has only just started to pay attention. It's just that fighter pilots have very prescribed functions and would certainly not be informed of any secret intelligence beyond what they need in order to function as fighter pilots. And it's also possible that there are things that the president does not know, but other people do know. We do know, as was noted, that there are things in the sky that are real, but unexplained, and the Pentagon's acknowledgement of this only strengthens this thought. Supposition, however, is not evidence, no matter how attractive some suppositions are, and no matter how much subjective sense they may make to some people. But given how long the White House has been occupied by some very unusual people, under very unusual circumstances, it seems like a very good bet that some very unusual things have happened between those walls. What do you really think goes on inside the White House?